welcome to the second quarter.
Woo-hoo!
We made it through the first quarter. The second quarter, we're going to change some things up just a little bit. Instead of having a video every single day where we go through your lesson with you, we're going to make a week video where we put all the things you need for the week in the video. You'll still go into your Google Classroom every day, just like you've been doing, and you'll still have your daily things that we'll say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, but we're going to have one video that you need to watch. And you can go back and watch it multiple times if you need to, but it's just kind of a way for us to streamline everything for y'all. So are you ready to get started on our second quarter of the year?
Here we go. So you will have a writing journal every day. The first prompt will be, imagine that you meet this little guy and write a story describing your meeting. So remember, on your writing journal, you're still writing 2 paragraphs, at least 10 sentences, and you should be developing those writing skills by now, where you are writing longer, using more description, and always, always, always using those capital letters and punctuation marks. On Wednesdays, we will always have free write. On Thursday, I want you to tell us, where's the coolest place you've ever visited? And if you say, I've never visited anywhere cool, make it up, but make it sound believable, because this is not fiction. This is nonfiction. So make us believe it, but you can make up somewhere that you have visited. So what made it so neat? How would you describe it to someone who's never been there? So again, we're describing, giving us lots of detail. And then Fiction Friday, my favorite. Write a fiction story where you meet someone unexpected.
That sounds very cool.
And so just like how we're having one video this week, we're really going to spend a little bit more time on our objectives and our agenda. Our agenda is going to look the same. How it's set up here. Monday, it's a school holiday, yay. Tuesday, again, you're going to want to make sure you go through each of those things, and you can check off those boxes as you go down it. It's a good to-do list and a good checklist. So make sure you're looking at each one of those days on our weekly agenda. And then our weekly objectives. We are going to talk a little bit more in depth about these today. So we have read and analyze a science fiction text. Our story this week is a science fiction story. And so we're really going to talk about what makes a science fiction story a science fiction story. What parts go into that? We are going to determine theme and describe the way the author conveys theme. And so theme may sound like one of those big, scary words that you really don't know how to define. We're going to really try and work hard on giving you a better idea of how to define that word this week and look for it when you read things. And then we're going to explain different points of view in literature. And we've talked about point of view the last couple of weeks. And so we've got our first person, third person limited, third person omniscient. We're really going to get into point of view again this week. You're also going to write a science fiction story. And I'm really excited about this because you kind of get to step outside the box here. And so after we talk about all the elements of a science fiction story, you're going to make your own. And so that's going to be a really cool thing we're going to talk about in a minute, a little bit more in detail. You are going to determine meaning of unknown words using Greek roots as a guide. This is going to be a very fun activity this week. And we've seen lots of those questions pop up on our test. It's like, this word has a Greek root or a Greek prefix of this. And it's kind of been a little confusing for some of us. So we're really going to dive deep into Greek roots. We're going to analyze the proper usage and consistency of verb tense.
That's a big one.
That's a big one. And so we're going to look at our verbs and the correct tense in the sentences and how we use verbs, because that's going to help us become better writers if we know how to use the verbs in the correct way. And then we're going to talk about point of view again inside the text, and how point of view can be really important if you're telling a story, especially like the one we're reading that's a little bit different.
So vocabulary this week is going to be a little bit different. you are not going to have a list of words or a vocabulary study guide this week, and you will not have a vocabulary test on Friday. You will have a quiz on Wednesday, but you're not going to have a big vocabulary test with a list of words. What we're going to look at is our Greek roots. So what is a Greek root? A Greek root is a word part that contains a core meaning. Okay, so we know that English comes from lots of different places, lots of different languages, and so it's kind of a mixture of different languages. Greek is one of those languages that is in our English language, and if we can understand the meaning of some of these word parts, it helps us determine the meaning of words that we may not be familiar with. So what we are going to do is learn some of these roots, some of these parts, so that it'll help you when you come across a word that you don't know. Okay? So for instance, the word microphone. If you don't know what microphone means, you might know that the word phone comes from sound. Okay? So phone means sound, micro means small, so that helps you understand what a microphone does. It's a small thing that helps make sound bigger. Okay? What we're going to do, I have given you a word study journal. And you're actually going to use this journal for several different weeks. This week, we're just going to focus on Greek roots. So it's really cool because it's a Google slide, but you can click on different parts of it and it'll take you to different parts of the journal. At the very front, there will be a tab. You can click on it. It will take you to Greek roots. And you're going to use this slideshow to fill in the blanks on your word study journal. So you'll see that in your copy, some of these are missing. These are all some different Greek roots that are very popular in words. So for instance, auto. Did you know that auto means self or directed from within? So an automobile is a car or a vehicle that is directed from within. It has an engine that makes it go all by itself. Okay? Autobiography. Auto means self, so it's a biography written by one's self, about oneself. So those are really important things that you can use to help you understand words. So what you're going to do today on Monday is take this slideshow and fill in the blanks kind of like you do on your vocabulary study guide, but it'll be inside your word study journal. And you see you have 2 pages of it, and I'm not going to read this all to you because you can read it all by yourself, but you'll see you have the root, what that means, and then examples. Now, let's look at this. The root of the word thermometer means, well, if I go back to my journal, I know that meter is the root, and meter means measure. So that means measure. In order to conduct photosynthesis, a plant needs, well, photo means light, so a plant must need light. To write is to graph. So graph means to write. Did you know that? Antarctica is located in the southern hemisphere of the globe. The word hemisphere includes the Greek roots hemi, meaning half, and sphero, meaning sphere or ball. So a hemisphere is, well, if I take that, I can look at hemi half, sphero ball, so half of a ball, so half of the earth. Yeah, an area that's half of the earth. In the desert, water is precious and every drop is recycled. The origin of the word recycled is the Greek root cycle, meaning circle. Which of the following words most likely comes from the Greek root? So bicycle, icicle, or symbol? Well, I know that a bicycle has round wheels, so I bet it's bicycle. Guys, this is what your quiz this week is going to look like. You will be able to use your word study journal to help you with the quiz because we want you to be able to use those Greek words to help you figure out the meaning of unknown words.
All right, so let's infer.
Yes.
And I'm making sure you can see the picture here. So our picture is, what can you infer about the people in the photograph? So I see people in the photograph and it looks like maybe it's raining. So I infer that it has just rained because the street is wet and everyone's wearing their boots. What can you infer about this person in the photograph? I infer that the boy is having a lot of fun with leaves because he's throwing them up in the air. I infer from this photograph, that the little girl is spending the day with her grandmother and is enjoying spending the day with her grandmother because the lady has a walker and looks older and they both have smiles on their faces. What can I infer in this photograph? Ooh, I infer that these students are taking a test, working hard, because they are all looking down at their papers and they're all holding their pencils and it looks like they're working hard. So make sure that you are thinking about inferencing in the stories that we're reading and in your books that you are reading at home, and be making those inferences in your head.
And as we start our reading lesson, we're going to be making some inferences this week as we kind of get into our story. And so we have our essential question: what can you learn by seeing the world through an animal's eyes? And this is one that's going to take us through our second unit and through Zoo, our story for this week. And so our quick start this week says, what do you think and feel when you see an animal at the zoo for the first time? What might the zoo experience be like for the animals themselves? So when we go to a zoo, we look into the enclosures, into the environments that they're in, but I wonder what it would be like from the animal's point of view, looking at all those people walking by each day, right?
Yeah, sometimes I wonder if they're well taken care of.
Mhm.
I worry if I see an animal in an enclosure that's too small.
Yeah.
I like to imagine that the animals are happy, that they have lots of room and space, and that their habitat is really close to their natural habitat. I always hope that for the animals.
So do I.
When you see like the fish that are swimming and you know they're getting all the extra food that people are feeding them, I feel like that they're probably thinking, I am in the best place in the world right here.
Yes.
Nobody can fish and eat me, and I can just make myself happy and eat all this food I want.
And so this week, our story is a science fiction story. And so we really need to talk about the genre elements of science fiction to kind of understand our story better. So this combines scientific information and the author's imagination to create unexpected possibilities. So even though some of this stuff seems very out of this world, some of it has some scientific evidence behind it. And so in Zoo, we will look at space travel. And while some space travel is possible, maybe not to this extent, obviously, there is little bits of scientific information there that are that you can pull from. Often, this makes a statement about human nature or human experience. And so it really looks on the inside. There's a whole lot of conflict sometimes between like man versus self and man versus the other parts of the world. So there's the conflicts that are going on there in science fiction because they want you to ask important, hard questions. It's usually set in the future. And we'll talk about our picture in a second about how that kind of seems futuristic. It may have a surprise ending. It may not be a great ending. I'm thinking of one story in particular, but it has a surprise ending or a little bit of a twist. And it includes short stories and novels. So it can be a short story, it can be a full-length novel. Science fiction kind of runs the gamut of literature.
So what are some examples of science fiction that our students might be familiar with?
So science fiction, you're thinking probably Star Wars
I was
fans.
going to say that's the first thing I thought of.
My
Star Wars, Star
fans,
Trek.
Star Trek. If you are any way into Marvel, There's some science fiction elements in Marvel, especially if you get kind of into Guardians of the Galaxy or Doctor Strange or any of those Marvel films. Not too brushed up on my DC universe, I'm sorry. But science fiction is all around us. And sometimes science fiction really toes the line with scary stories or horror stories. And so science fiction and sometimes a little bit of scary or suspense, they kind of walk the line very close together sometimes.
Well, there are lots of different kinds of science fiction. You have, your action and your scary, and then more toward the documentary side.
Yeah.
But that's what I prefer. I don't like suspense or anything
I'm not
intense. I like to hear the possibilities of science, but I don't want to be afraid at all.
There's a really cool documentary about going to Mars.
Nice.
And like how much just science and how many years it would take and all that really cool stuff about sending people to Mars. It's a really nifty documentary. And so our story this week is called Zoo. And you can see the picture behind us. And just by looking at the picture, we've got some flying vehicles. It looks like all the buildings are not what we're used to seeing. So something has happened, or buildings, or how we, house our world.
It reminds me a little bit of WALL-E.
Yes.
Which is my favorite science fiction.
I like WALL-E. Bless him, little robot. And so we can look at this picture and kind of get an idea of where we're going. We're going somewhere futuristic, and we already know it's going to be science fiction, so there's going to be some elements in it of that. And so our theme, a story's theme is its message about life or human nature. And stories often have multiple themes because authors are doing a lot of work in their stories. And so an example would be a story about a teenager who gets lost in the wilderness. And it includes themes about the power of nature, as well as the endurance of the human spirit, how he pushed himself or herself to survive in that situation. And then authors use narration and dialogue and details and their characterization and how the text is structured to convey a theme. They can be stated explicitly, which means they're right here in your face. This is the theme. So if you're thinking like Marvel movies, this is the good guy, this is the bad guy. Good triumphs over evil. Very in your face theme right there. Or it could be implicitly put through the story, and that means it's indirectly repeated throughout the story through ideas and words and imagery, but it's always there. And so one of those can be like the idea of found family. And so maybe a character in your story doesn't really have a strong like at home family, but they've created a wonderful group of friends, and that friendship group becomes their found family. And that's kind of one of those indirect themes that you can find in literature. And so as you read, you're going to use a chart to record evidence from the story that conveys theme. To infer the story's multiple themes, use your notes to help make logical guesses based on the evidence and your own knowledge and experience. Okay, so it does get a little bit tricky, but we've got this great brain pop that you're going to look at that explains theme. And if you look at the bottom of the slide, it tells you the username and password for Brain Pop. And you guys should be pros at getting to Brain Pop by now.
Yes.
And then we have point of view, and we've talked about point of view a lot. And we know that it refers to the perspective from which the story is told. We know that in a story that's told from first person, the narrator is a character in the story, and we use pronouns like I, me, we, and the reader, they only see what the character sees. So we only get that character's perspective. I was like, what is that idea? What is that word? Perspective. And then a story that's told from the third person point of view, the narrator is not a character in the story, and we use pronouns like he, she, and they. And a third person narrator, they reveal what all the characters think and feel, and that is omniscient, okay? A third person omniscient point of view. And so as you read the story, note how the omniscient point of view affects all that information that we receive.
Mm-hmm.
Because this story would be very different if we only got one side of it. And so this week, on top of, you know, your Greek really cool notebook that we're using, we're also going to have a practice on our point of view, because we've been going over it a lot lately. And so we're going to practice. So Sally and I went to the mall to get makeovers and a new pair of shoes for the dance. We were so excited. And so just by looking at that sentence, I see an I went, I see a we were so excited. That's definitely a first person sentence.
Definitely.
And then Wilma and Fred bought a brand new set of furniture. They were so excited about it, even though Wilma thought it was just a little too hard. So we've got two characters here. We've got they were so excited, so we're getting both feelings there. That's going to be third person omniscient. You should check out the book that was just released. It tells an amazing story that you're sure to love. All those yours, that's a second person. Harriet always preferred to catch the bad guy. As she turned the corner, she caught him red-handed. She snuck up, certain that she had won this round. And this one, we're not getting the bad guy's point of view at all, just Harriet's. So that's a third person limited point of view.
Yep. All right, so we're going to look at our grammar for this week. We will be talking about verbs, and specifically verb tenses. So notice that you do have a video, a Brain Pop video, so you can click the link and the information is down at the bottom. It is really important when you are writing to pick a tense and stay in it. Okay, so you can pick any tense that you want, past, present, or future, but you can't switch back and forth. And so that's what you are looking at when you are looking at these verb tenses. So I can't say, I went to the store tomorrow, because went is past, tomorrow is future. It doesn't make sense. I can't say, I went to the store yesterday, I'm going to buy paper towels. Well, did you go to the store yesterday, or are you about to go to the store? We can't tell. So make sure when you're writing, you are picking a tense and staying in it. And read back over it. Make sure that you don't skip back and forth, because then your writing just doesn't sound very good. And so that's what we're going to be looking at here. Let's look at this sentence. She went to bed and dreams about unicorns.
What?
So she went to bed, that's past tense. Dreams is present tense. So I'm confused about when this happened. The applesauce is cooking on the stove and I ate it. Well, is cooking is happening right now, present. Ate it is past. So if it's cooking right now, how did you already eat it? It doesn't make sense. She jumped on the bed and is hitting her head. Well, jumped is past, that already happened. Is hitting is present. So I'm really confused about what's happening in this sentence. She will go to the store tomorrow and bought apples. Will go is future, bought is past. I don't know what that's happening.
I don't know
That
what's happening
doesn't
there.
make sense.
We went to the pumpkin patch and are picking apples. Went is past, are picking is present.
Yeah, no.
So the ice melted and maked a puddle.
Oh dear.
Maked.
Maked isn't even a
That's
word.
not even a word.
So melted is past, maked is past, but maked is not a word. So make sure that when you're using your verb tenses, you're using the correct form of the verb, because there are verbs such as make. The past tense is made. So make sure you're paying attention to those things. And when in doubt, guys, those little lines come up under your words and tell you, hey, something's wrong. Pay attention to that, okay? Let's look. So, verb tenses are used for 3 different purposes: to narrate past events, to show that action is consistently happening, and then to make a distinction between past tense and direct quotes that are maybe in a different tense. So remember, things that are quoted, things that are in quotation marks, can be different tenses than the words that are in your story. So know that they may be different because people are speaking those words. Here's some more fill in the blanks with the correct verb. Last night I baked cookies with my mom. Well, since it says last night, we know that baked is going to work there. She is going to took me to the mall. Well, is going tells me kind of present, future. So she is going to take me to the mall. Took is past. Seymour wants to eat a mouse. So Seymour, because he is one snake, he's going to Seymour wants to eat a mouse. Make sure that those match. We should try or tried the new restaurant. Try would be the correct answer here. We should try the new restaurant. They likes to ride the roller coaster. They like to ride the roller coasters. My family always takes a photo for our Christmas card. Always takes a photo for our Christmas card.
All right. This week we have a different writing lesson, and you are going to write your own science fiction story. And I mentioned this earlier. And so there are some key things that you need to do when you start writing this science fiction story. You need to choose a setting. This could be in the past, it can be in the present, or it can be in the future. Okay, so think outside the box. And you need to choose a unique or unexpected circumstances. So don't treat science fiction like it's realistic fiction. This can be what you want it to be. So think outside the box, really push yourself and your imagination. If you want to go to space, go to space. If you want to travel to the center of the earth, go for it. Like, your possibilities are like however your imagination takes you, pretty much. You need to select a main character to face the challenges. So you are going to want to have a main character that kind of has an issue or a problem, and you're going to write about how they're facing that challenge or problem. And then you're probably going to want to have a twist. Okay, there needs to be some surprise or twist at the ending that makes your readers go, I didn't see that coming. Or, wow, that was a really cool way to take that story. Okay? And so think about these things and really brainstorm. Don't just try and start writing, because that's always really difficult, because you can paint yourself into a corner and then you get frustrated and you just, I don't know what to write. So really brainstorm that idea and kind of get it fleshed out, and then start writing. And remember that good writers edit. It's not going to be perfect the first time. You're going to take your time, and you're going to have to kind of problem solve your own writing sometimes.
Read it every day, and that way you can hear what it sounds like.
Yes.
And go back and make changes.
And honestly, you guys do so well when writing stories and when writing those Fiction Fridays. I'm really excited to see what unique things you come up with here. I'm really, really excited about it.
For sure.
Well, guess what? That is the end of your first week in the second quarter, and we hope you've had a great week. Bye.
Bye.